Welcome, guys. Rust Armourer, the Armourer for Rust, the movie, was charged, or went down, involuntary manslaughter. So the trial happened yesterday, or has been happening anyway, and yeah, it all sort of happened yesterday, basically. Some crazy stuff from the trial itself. If I had the time, I would have made some content like I did the Johnny Depp trial, the Depp and Amber Heard one. I just didn't have any time, but at one point, there's a blurry image, and the specialist that was paid 10 grand just brightened it, and it literally looks blurrier. Looks worse. Some memeable stuff. Oh, a gun expert just took out a gun and pointed it at the judge. Didn't bother to tell anyone or show anyone it wasn't loaded. I mean, just insane stuff. Memeable things. Genuinely memeable. But anyway, here we have it. So Rust Armourer Hannah Gutierrez Reed's involuntary manslaughter trial goes to jury after closing argument. So sorry, it wasn't fully. Was she charged or not? I could have sworn she was. Yeah, no, verdict. Yeah, it was. Sorry. Yeah, it was. So involuntary manslaughter. Guilty, basically. Not guilty of evidence tampering, though, jury says. So we'll take a look at the overall verdict and just take a look at what they say after, well, before the fact as well. So a New Mexico jury on Wednesday found Rust Armourer Hannah Gutierrez Reed's guilty of involuntary manslaughter in the fatal 2021 shooting of cinematographer Helena Hutchins on the set of the indie western. The jury decided that the defendant was not guilty of evidence tampering, which is interesting. I do wonder, though, whether, because Alec Baldwin's got a trial going up against him, whether he'll be guilty of evidence tampering. So the panel of 7 women and 5 men returned their verdict in the criminal case after just a couple of hours of deliberation yesterday. The trial of the crew member was 2 weeks and saw closing arguments this morning. Judge Mary Marlowe Sommer had Gutierrez Reed taken into custody almost immediately after the verdict was read out. A sentencing hearing is potentially set for next month. The defence have made it clear that they plan to appeal. Interesting. Now, she only got her job through nepotism. The stepdaughter of famed movie gun coach Thel Reed, relatively inexperienced armourer, very inexperienced, Gutierrez Reed, was charged with involuntary manslaughter and evidence tampering. She faced up to 3 years in state prison if found guilty on both charges. With the split verdict, though, the most Gutierrez Reed could potentially receive is 18 months and a fine of several $1,000s. Doesn't seem that much, though, does it, for involuntary manslaughter? So ever since she was charged back in January, the prosecution has claimed Gutierrez Reed was responsible for live rounds getting on the Rust set and into the gun that Alec Baldwin was holding that fired during rehearsals on the Bonanza Creek set, striking Hutchins and director Joel Souza. In response, the defence has offered various theories over the past 2 years about how that fatal bullet got there, including sabotage. I mean, the whole thing, tinfoil hat territory, for goodness sake. It's just laziness. There was reports of them shooting stuff after hours. It's just laziness. So there's a reasonable doubt that she had anything to do ultimately with Helena Hutchins' death. The main defence lawyer, Jason Bowles, said today in his closing argument for the jury. The special prosecutors and Sommer, reiterating language from his opening statement on February 2020, Bowles called his client a convenient scapegoat, and the buck stops with production. As in any organisation, it starts at the top. I mean, yeah, true. I mean, look, there's so many different opinions on this, because there's going to be the gun lot, and I don't mean that as a derogatory term, but the gun lot in the States, they'll be like, no, it's Baldwin's fault. And then there'll be other people that, follow movie sets, they'll be like, no, it's not his fault, because that's not how movie sets work. So there's so many conflicting opinions on how, justice could be served here. Gutierrez Reed was negligent, she was careless, she was thoughtless. This is Special Prosecutor Kerry Morrissey said yesterday in a closing statement, proclaiming there is a mountain of circumstantial evidence against the defendant. Morrissey added of the defence's so-called shotgun approach. This is all smoke and mirrors and deflection. They don't want the truth. You can't handle the truth. Sorry. A visibly distraught Thel Reed was in Santa Fe County courtroom today when the verdict was read out against his stepdaughter. Also in the courtroom, sitting at the back, was Rust ammunition supplier Seth Kenny. And that's the person that everyone thinks sabotaged it, apparently. Apparently he sabotaged it. So, long at the heart of the mystery of how live rounds got into the gun in Baldwin's hand, Kenny told the court in his own testimony earlier this week that he believed the 81-year-old Reed wanted to blame him for the accident, knowing Thel and having been friends with him for a few years at that point. I know how he loves his stepdaughter. What there seemed to be no debate about in this trial was that to save money, producers on the low-budget indie western had Gutierrez Reed working as both the armourer and as assistant props master Sarah Zachary. The latter struck a plea deal last year and testified for the prosecution last week. Interesting. But yeah, so basically Gutierrez Reed was not provided time to conduct her duties to the best of her diligence, required to focus on other tasks, working on props and things like that. So OSHA handed out civil penalty to Russ Productions for 136 grand, well 137 basically, one of the largest such penalties ever levied by the organisation. That penalty was reduced to 100 grand early last year after a protest from the producers. Alec Baldwin's got it, he's fine. So after the sentencing of Gutierrez Reed, the next big move in this whole thing is Baldwin. So Baldwin's been recharged with involuntary manslaughter in January and having entered a not guilty plea. Not long afterwards, the multi-Emmy winning actor was brought up almost as much as the defendant herself in Gutierrez Reed's trial. So this is going to be interesting because I would imagine, I mean, a lot of this, it's just a huge crossover, isn't it? Potentially looking at 18 months behind bars if found guilty. He'll never serve any time. Baldwin is also fighting a series of civil cases related to the Rush shooting in both California and New Mexico courts. Although the FBI and other gun examiners disagree, Baldwin has been adamant that he did not pull the trigger. But the FBI disagree with that, and also special prosecutors put it all back because it was dismantled for some weird reason. I don't understand why, but the gun was in bits. Like lately, they had to reconstruct it. So Baldwin's been adamant that he did not pull the trigger on the Colt 45 he was holding, that fired and killed Hutchins and wounded Souza. Rust, the movie, was resurrected last year with more filming in Montana, and Baldwin and Souza back on board. The completed film has been on the market looking for a buyer, and I doubt anyone's going to buy it. Jesus, can you imagine buying that and releasing that? But this is the thing, you know, I mean, involuntary manslaughter, I'm surprised they don't have him down for charges of evidence tampering because, I mean, the gun was in pieces for some reason. Also, like, obstruction. I mean, he didn't want to give his phone up. Loads and loads of stuff. Loads and loads and loads of stuff. So, it'll be interesting. But there you go. There's a piece of justice in some regard, if that's the way you want to look at it. She going down? I doubt... she might serve time in prison. I don't think... Baldwin probably won't. But she might. Thoughts? Do you think this is justice or not? It's a tragic event. And... Only overshadowed, the tragedy of this event is only overshadowed by the distinct lack of haste that it's taken people to move forward and get some verdicts out. So, it's sad. Thoughts down below though. Take care. Bye bye now.